The texter.
When I wake, you 24, on my ankles hit the floor. Take a break, say thank you, Lord. Then I dip up out the door. Don't lack it, I can't afford. Built tough like a Ford. Pack the word like a sword. This a battle, this a war. For your mind, it's a war. For your time, it's a war. For your money, it's a war. This ain't funny, it's a war. For the kid, it's a war. For how you live, it's a war. For your focus, it's a war. We ain't joking, it's a war. Let's tell the squad to squad up. Let's uplift and lift God up. He laid down his life and got up. Rather we wins and lose, they not us. Can't tie us down or hold us back. Bible blicky, we holy strap. It's a war and we on attack. On point like we on up. Look, he filling the blanks when I'm feeling so blank. When I sit and I think and I drain on my thoughts like I swim in a tank. And God's on me and I'm pulling my rank. Don't tell me I can't. Like a man with a tank, bro. I'm ready for the war. Don't stepping like Morse code. One day he gon' come knock at the door. So better get hit like a torso. When I wake, you 24, on my ankles hit the floor. Take a break, say thank you, Lord. Then I dip up out the door. Don't lack it, I can't afford. Built tough like a Ford. Pack the word like a sword. This a battle, this a war. For your mind, it's a war. For your time, it's a war. For your money, it's a war. This ain't funny, it's a war. For the kid, it's a war. For how you live, it's a war. For your focus, it's a war. We ain't joking, it's a war.
Yeah, it's a war. Gotta cut the tie, you feel a pull. Bible say the flee, let's keep it dead. Elevator, don't work, take a set. Gotta watch the world and do the most. I'm just as radical in my approach. You can ask the kids who checking phones. Nah, don't unlock it, what's the code? I was once timid, now I'm bold. Bought my father business, I don't troll. Time to spread the G, I won't go. Let her pour it back and watch him grow. In the blood, I'm covered head to toe. Sacrifices made to save a soul. Trying to pack the kingdom, that's the goal. Down and be the lamb, not the goat.
When I wake, you 24, on my ankles hit the floor. Take a break, say thank you, Lord. Then I dip up out the door. Don't lack it, I can't afford. Built tough like a Ford. Pack the word like a sword. This a battle, this a war. For your mind, it's a war. For your time, it's a war. For your money, it's a war. This ain't funny, it's a war. For the kid, it's a war. For how you live, it's a war. For your focus, it's a war. We ain't joking, it's a war.
Fighting with a masquerade, war. The devil I eradicate. I'm a soldier for the Lord above. And for him, I'm a basket case. It's time to show I got the sword on me. Time to lock and load, I brought a whole army. Got squad control, we about to shift gears. Bring the Lord near, no more fear. War. And with a Bible verse, I could replace a curse and make a demon hurt. They gon' need a hearse, and I'ma need a shovel to put them in the dirt. And that's the way it works. War. Meeting with the Lord, that's one day. Gotta read more than Sunday. Rather be a victim of the faith than the face of disgrace of me making a mistake.
When I wake, you 24, on my ankles hit the floor. Take a break, say thank you, Lord. Then I dip up out the door. Don't lack it, I can't afford. Built tough like a Ford. Pack the word like a sword. This a battle, this a war. For your mind, it's a war. For your time, it's a war. For your money, it's a war. This ain't funny, it's a war. For the kid, it's a war. For how you live, it's a war. For your focus, it's a war. We ain't joking, it's a war.
We're at war. We're at war. We're at war. We're at war. We're at war. We're at war. We're at war. We're at war.
Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Stolen Smith Jr. He,
CJ,
and we are the Unapologetic Apologists. Go, if you are watching this on YouTube, download Rumble, the rest of the show, the link in the description. The second half of the show will be on Rumble. Quick rundown for the program today. Eric Hernandez, still destroying atheists. All started way back with the post. He was on the channel a little while ago. You can go check out that video with what sparked this growing series he's doing on his channel, Debating Atheists. Guy's just great. He continues to recommend, and he's actually going to be debating, I know, a Mormon either in a week, 2 weeks. So go subscribe to his channel. He will actually be back on later this month to review a Matt Dillahunty video. But today we're going to be reviewing the most recent debate he had with an atheist. It will be fun. After we're done doing that over on Rumble, we're actually going to be looking at two videos from Josh Howerton. The first being on apostasy and semantics. Not Josh Howerton, but a man who he's talking to at the time makes the case for once saved, always saved. And when a clarification that I often make in these discussions as I advocate that apostasy is a real thing, he just brushes off as, oh, that's a semantic game. And so we're going to show how he actually just digs himself into a hole by doing that. Semantics are actually really important. Andrew Wilson talks about this all the time. Don't let people run away from defining their terms. They like for terms to be vague because that allows them to get away with bad logic in their arguments. And then the last thing, I don't know why streamers doing this, I bring it up. Another video by Josh Howerton, who he himself is not talking about cussing, but he is talking about character, and we'll leave a little mystery alive there because we're going to make the case that cussing, is it a sin, is it not a sin? It really just comes down to context and your character. Not super simple. But anyway, we are going to get right into reviewing this debate. Eric, what's great is I do all the work. I prep and CJ comes in fresh, so it's pretty great. So you can get an authentic reaction to him.
My job is so easy.
Yeah, I have to suffer through listening to these guys ahead of time, but this actually wasn't bad because you get to listen to Eric. And two main arguments that the atheist focuses on, because Eric is asking him, hey, what's your evidence for being an atheist? The first one he's going to bring up is suffering. And he's actually going to make a big mistake going actually at the logical form of suffering, which is to say these are actually contradictory things, the attributes of God and the existence of suffering. So big mistake there. We'll talk about that. And then the second thing they get into is just the atheist believes in determinism. But he doesn't know what determinism is. And as Eric will point out, a lot of it comes from his background. When he was a Christian, he was actually a Calvinist. And so it's like, this is something I discussed with Eric. This will be the last thing before we get into the clip. Last time Eric was on the show, I discussed with him, what's funny is a lot of these atheists who used to be Christians, whether genuinely or not, we'll get into that on Rumble, they often are brought up in a very radicalized, what would you say, fundamentalist form of Christianity.
It's usually my experience with it.
Yeah, and so they reject it, but what's funny is they never actually stop being fundamentalists, because they can still only see that form of Christianity they believed in the fundamentalist way, and they apply the exact same fundamentalist logic to their current atheism.
Well, it's a fair point, because if that's all you know that is what it is, then that's just the presupposition.
Yeah, and so they're never able to shed the framework while still saying the Christians are the illogical ones and we're the logical ones. But you actually, the thing you rejected because of the framework you didn't like, you actually weren't able to shed that framework. And so you become guilty of a lot of the same ways of framing your worldview as the very thing you're criticizing.
Okay.
So, but anyway, yeah, let's get right into, let's see if I can pull this up here. Here we go. All right, Eric, let's see.
God we're talking about. So there's a lot of Christians, I don't know about you, but they'll describe God as being both all powerful and all loving.
Yep.
If by all loving you mean to end all unnecessary suffering,
Who defines it that way?
See what Eric does right there? Brilliant. He doesn't launch into a long diatribe, just who defines it that way? That's why Eric is a great guy to watch if you want to learn how to debate.
Well, well, some Christians define it that way, some don't. I had a Christian come on my show and he defined all loving by doing what's best for you, which was a strange definition.
But again, this is a way that people run from things. What Eric cares about, what I care about is, how do you define it, Mr. Atheist? Not how do some people you've talked to define it. Because again, that vagueness just allows you to be illogical in the arguments. It allows you to equivocate on terms.
Well, it's not even that. I mean, it is that, but it's not even just that. It's the ability to know whether or not we actually do agree on anything, or if we're just. It helps us to determine where we need to correct if correcting is necessary. Not in like a detrimental or stupid for this thing, but it's like, if we don't know what you think this is, we could be talking about two totally different things, but we're arguing like it's the same thing.
Yeah,
which just ends up leading into circles.
Yeah, and what's funny is as you'll see as we play in this, I super chat Eric here, and I give a proper definition for a term that they're going to be using, and he goes, "Well, that's a nice definition, but I prefer Oxford." And what did he just do? He doesn't give his clear definition. It's just, well, some Christians have appealed to. But that doesn't define truth. That's just a easy way of strawmanning people. But yeah.
So that's what I'm saying. So it's all definitional, depending on how you define the properties of that God. And then we can talk about the properties. How do you define those properties? So if you define the God as all powerful, as in the ability to do anything that isn't a logical contradiction, and also all loving, as in the desire to end all suffering, then the existence of suffering would disprove that God. If you object to those definitions, then the existence of suffering may not do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so just reject the definitions.
Well, okay, so it's not even necessarily just that, and maybe the video later will answer this for me. Maybe I'm jumping the gun a little bit too much, but he said if this and this and this and this, and that's fine. But I'm curious what the argument would be if not, then
right. And I was thinking they're just not good definitions. But yeah, I sped this up because we have a lot to get through. So hopefully this isn't too crazy for people.
So I'm a father. I consider myself a loving father. I don't want to eliminate all suffering from my children's lives.
No, okay, so unnecessary suffering.
Then I guess the burden of proof would be on you to show that there is a such thing as unnecessary suffering.
What's the thing? So if the God is all powerful, all suffering.
Sorry, I'm going to try to interrupt this less as we go because I get it interrupts the flow of the thought as you're understanding it. But I have to highlight how brilliant what Eric does, or how brilliant it is what Eric does. See how he just said, well, I'm a loving father and I don't want to eliminate all suffering from my kids' lives. And then he goes, okay, we'll send the burden of proof would be on you to prove that definition. Again, going back to his book, The Lazy Approach, it's like the temptation is, oh, you said this thing and I have to refute it and I want to jump in with all these ideas and I want to make sure things are clear. No, make people support their burden of proof.
Suffering becomes unnecessary.
Why? Because
he's all powerful. So that means he has the ability to remove any goal that he wants, he could achieve without suffering. There are goals that I
he can do it freely.
Freely?
Mm-hmm.
What do you mean by freely?
Well, if I want my children to learn and grow, and suffering is a factor that aids in that growth, then
yes, he can do it freely.
As opposed to just zapping my kid with something, because I think there are some values, attributes, properties, virtues that come from suffering.
All of those virtues that you would be instilled in them through suffering, they could just learn instantly.
Right, but that begs a question that, remember what I said, I think that suffering, that there's some things, some virtues that are obtained through suffering, and that suffering is a factor that plays into the attainment of that virtue.
And if God is all powerful, he can absolutely give you all of those virtues without the suffering. That's what it means to be all powerful.
No, incorrect. And I'm going to take the video off the screen here because this is where I'm going to spend a minute talking about this. No, God can just randomly give you characteristics. They would not be virtuous. One example they're going to talk about is bravery, right? And this is where you'll see the disagreement come up later, whereas I point out in the live chat, because he's kind of talking about bravery as, oh, I'm just strong, I can do things. And I point out that, no, bravery is not the absence of fear. Bravery is the strength and courage to act in the face of your fear.
You just beat my question, so that's fine.
Yeah, so fear is necessary for bravery. And that, by the way, that's why bravery is virtuous. Right? If you just weren't afraid,
it's to act in opposition to something.
Yeah. If you weren't afraid, then there's no virtue in the act.
You would just be doing it.
You would just be doing it, right?
So every time I go up the roof of the buildings I'm working on, it's virtuous. Thank you, Michael.
Yeah, there you go.
Thank you.
And so his argument here just collapses because he wants to say, well, God could just give us certain characteristics. But the point is that if God just zapped me with a kind of strength, and he's even going to say that you don't need danger to be brave. You don't need anything to overcome to be brave, right? If there was nothing threatening us, if there was no fear, and God just zapped us arbitrarily with this strength, and by the way, I don't choose it because again, they're going to get to determinism. If I don't choose it, that I'm just designed to be strong and I have no other choice but to act in strength, and I'm never afraid, and I'm never dangerous, then in what sense are those actions I'm taking virtuous?
Or not even simplify that. What makes them brave then? What did you need to find the courage to do if nothing was going to happen? Right,
which is why the definitions and semantics are important. I think bravery being the absence of fear just means something else. It's not what we're typically talking about when we talk about bravery, because when we think of bravery, we inherently admire people who are brave, right?
Sure, yeah. You look at the story, heroes and stuff. Like, yeah, you the hero, he's the brave guy. Yeah, so we admire.
Yeah, it's not brave to go make a sandwich, right? And now maybe though, if I don't know, I was trying to think of some hypothetical there. It's like your kid's starving and this is a stupid hypothetical, but somehow making the sandwich might cause great harm to yourself and you do it anyway. Like that's now virtuous, right? So this idea that God can just zap us with the act and zap us with the will for something, that just robs all virtue out of it. And so Eric's going to be making the case here that if God wants virtuous creatures, suffering is necessary to develop those virtues. And the idea of God just zapping us with certain characteristics, they're no longer virtuous. And there's no learning, there's no maturity that comes with it. But yeah, we'll get into more on that.
Some sort of contradiction.
But well,
If
I don't
there-
know
if
if
there
you
were-
understand. I don't think you understand what I'm saying here.
Okay.
I'm saying that suffering is going to be a requirement could be a requirement for certain virtues.
Even
So
for
in other
all,
words,
all powerful God, he
So
could
let's
do
say,
that?
yeah. So let's say I want my son to be brave. How can you
Okay.
be brave with that when there's no danger around? It seems like bravery requires the presence of danger. Now, could God have created a world where bravery wasn't needed? Sure, but without going deeply, you were a Christian at one point, right? You know about the fall. Given the circumstances, situation we find ourselves in, there are some virtues that are obtained through things that will bring about or cause suffering.
I disagree.
And I don't see the logical contradiction that an all-loving God couldn't allow suffering, because I guess you'd have to first show why that's a logical contradiction. I don't see where that's at.
So danger may be required for the demonstration of bravery, but you could absolutely be brave in the absence of danger.
I'm not just saying the demonstration.
There are brave people walking around all the time, and they don't
The demonstration is the act of bravery. Right.
have to be in danger.
Like,
Sorry. go
no,
ahead.
it's like, okay, so people are walking around being brave, he said. It's like, okay,
But no dangers around.
so by that
Nothing-
logic, everyone is brave.
Yeah, but simultaneously, nothing they do is
Or no one's
virtuous.
brave. It's everyone and no one at the same time is brave.
Right.
I don't know. Okay.
They can still be brave.
Not immediate danger, no, but the
Right,
presence of any
but,
danger.
right. But you still say they're a brave person. Like Captain America doesn't have to be constantly getting shot at to be brave.
Right,
He
I'm not
can
arguing
be asleep. Like he's still
But he had
brave.
to prove it at some point.
Yes, and so he's having a misunderstanding. Yes, Captain America can be a brave person, right? But again, why is the bravery virtuous? Like he can be brave even when his character is that of a brave man, even when he's sitting on the couch watching TV. Got it. But the whole point the whole reason it's virtuous for him to be a brave man is because when he's getting shot at, when he has to face danger to protect people, he can do it. Otherwise, if you spent your whole life sitting on the TV, watching TV, bravery wouldn't mean anything.
Right. And maybe and like to his credit, because I don't want to discredit anybody. Maybe I'm just not getting it, but it seems like it's inferring like it's all right, buddy. You ain't got to worry about it. I know you're brave.
Right.
Cool.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
Right.
No, I agree,
So, but the danger will be the demonstration of bravery. So
No.
but God could absolutely make the kid brave without danger.
So again, the
The kid couldn't become brave or develop the virtue of bravery. Like Captain America wasn't
I just don't understand why bravery would even matter at that point. Like,
yeah, exactly.
It's like
I mean,
like it just wouldn't even it wouldn't even be a trait that matters because it does nothing. It does absolutely nothing. So
yeah, like even like yes, when he talks about God zapping you with something, like yes, sometimes God gives us the strength and the courage to do
Yeah.
something that we wouldn't otherwise do. But notice God. I can't think of a time when God has actually taken away the fear completely. Like
he didn't do it to himself.
and I still have the freedom to choose to act on the courage He's given me.
He didn't take away the fear from himself
Right?
in the garden.
Yep.
Like it's not like do as I say, not as I do.
Mhm.
He was just as terrified in the garden and had to be brave and do what he knew he was called to do.
Yeah. Yeah. Sorry, the computer just did something. I'm making sure everything is still going strong. Producer, let me know if everything's still on the up and up on Rumble and YouTube. But yeah, sorry, that interrupted my train of
We need
thought.
to get him a whiteboard. All right, he says we're good. We're good.
Good. Yeah. So yeah, I lost my train of thought there. So we'll continue with this discussion here.
Sorry.
No, that was the computer being weird.
let me be as clear as possible.
Okay.
I'm not saying you have to be constantly in danger to be brave. I'm saying
Yeah,
that the presence
that
of
makes
danger,
sense.
whether immediate or not, is what allows for bravery. Would you agree with that?
So the
So-
presence of danger is what allows for the
The
demonstration. of bravery.
possibility of danger.
It what allows for the demonstration of bravery.
So are you conceding that someone can be brave? And I think you've already said that someone can be brave without immediate danger. We agree on that, correct?
You can be brave without danger. Period. It doesn't have immediate. You don't even need to add that. I'm saying you do not need danger for bravery.
But what about
I
the
don't
possible-
understand.
Well, and let's just follow his line there. So what he wants is a universe where God zaps everyone with bravery and there's never any danger. Well, in that universe, is there ever any virtue in being brave?
I would take a step over virtue. I would say, is there any value to it? Does it do anything?
Right. Does it do anything for our character? Because remember, the whole point with Eric is trying to make is God wants to develop our character. He wants to develop us and mature us into having virtuous character. And what this guy wants is for God to zap us with those qualities, but that still doesn't answer Eric's point, because then none of those qualities are virtuous. And so God's not actually developing or maturing anything in us.
Or necessary at that point. Even virtue, it's not necessary. It'd be wasted space, I guess.
Yeah, and so like if God just zapped us with certain characteristics, but they were never meant to be acted out in a way that meant anything good, then it really is no different than God zapping us with terrible characteristics, but never actually providing an opportunity to sin. So again, the actions just become meaningless.
Yeah.
Ability of danger.
No.
So what would they be brave for, or how?
So
How could someone be brave without any? And like I don't walk into a padded room and people say I'm brave.
that's how
Because
you
there's nothing that's going to hurt me.
right. They don't have to know you're brave. But what I'm saying is that would be how you demonstrate your bravery. So if the danger was to occur, you would do something brave. Therefore, you're brave. But the danger does not need to be there. It does not even need to exist.
Right. So
Yeah, and yeah, I wanted to include something along the lines of free will here. They are going to get into the free will thing, but like, and it's because, and just actually, you know what, this is a good point, because they get into it later, and Eric makes the point that, hey, look, you're still kind of stuck in your Calvinist, because when you used to be a Christian, you were a Calvinist, right? So
there it is.
they believe in determinism, and so even though he's left Christianity, he still cannot break out of that deterministic way of thinking. And so with that in mind, you can kind of understand where he's coming from. He himself does not have free will as part of his narrative of how he understands the world. And so this whole thing about God developing in us characters and developing virtues in us inherently presupposes free will, right? Because you have to choose to act brave. You have to, even if you feel brave, you still have to choose to act in the face of danger. And you can understand where he's coming from if he has that Calvinistic way of understanding. Ironically, he's one of these people who's actually consistent with his Calvinism, even as an atheist, and just understanding that, look, if God determines your character at the end of the day, then that just is that's the only thing that matters. I think actually, not to turn to criticizing Calvinism, but that actually is a good point of when you eliminate free will from the discussion, it really does just become a matter of, well, why doesn't God determine your character this way? That would be a good question to ask Calvinists.
That's fair. And like, I hear where you're saying, I think I'm just still stuck on the point where it's like, why does it matter then? Like knowing that you're brave and knowing you would do something in that scenario, why does it matter if the scenario is never going to happen? It had to happen. It's a worthless. Mm-hmm. I think that's the part I'm stuck on. It's like at that point, it's like, okay, the reasons to be brave no longer exist. So who cares if you're brave?
Yeah, and that's the thing. I think as I'm listening to this, and as someone just reminded me watching the stream, I think it does allow me to be more sympathetic to his position, because if in his mind Christianity is Calvinism, I think some of these criticisms might work for that. Right? Like that might be a fair point that allows us to be more sympathetic to his position.
I mean, yeah, that's fair. And I'm not like I said, I'm not sitting here bashing on the guy or anything. I'm not.
I'll do that later.
But it's just like, but no, that you bring that up, that does make some more sense. That if he does hold a Calvinist view, that it would by that point and be more, in line with that worldview, and it would make sense why he would think that. All so
yeah, and I might include some more on the Calvinist front later, but
I didn't even consider that.
Yeah, but setting that aside, this argument still just doesn't work, because he's not defining virtues.
Yeah, I'm still just
he's defining arbitrary character traits that wouldn't mean anything.
I'm asking, how can there be bravery without the possibility of danger?
So that virtue, bravery. So they would have what can you define what the bravery is? Maybe we disagree on definitions.
Let's look it up. Let's see what
okay.
Go to Google says.
Now, real quick, just to preamble this, what Eric's about to read, I think he goes through a little too quick, and so later when I add the clarifying definition of it's not the absence of fear, it's the courage and strength to act in the face of fear. He's going to dispute that definition, go, well, I just prefer the definition Eric read. I actually went and looked up the exact definition, and when you read it more carefully, it's worded differently, but it does mean what I meant. I was not wrong.
Quality of mind or action that allows someone to face danger, pain, or fear without running away.
Yeah, I think you absolutely have that. So you have the spirit. So you have the quality of the spirit that let
To face danger. Remember, it's the quality. Actually, I'm going to take it back just a second because I do want to hear him read that again. Too far, I got to be careful.
To face danger, pain, or fear without running away.
Yeah.
So the courage to face danger, pain, or fear without running away. That assumes the presence of those things: pain,
Right.
danger, fear.
Yeah.
So, and then I think you just went through that a little too quick. You didn't catch that.
Which is what I've been saying, where it's like, okay, those things don't exist, so who cares if you're brave anymore? Do anything.
Yeah.
I think you absolutely have that. So you have the spirit. So you have the quality of the spirit that lets a person face danger, and the danger doesn't have to be there. But if it was there, he would absolutely be willing to do it. So like, so this is more about like a kind of like a capability, a potentiality. How would you react? And you would still have to.
But it's not virtuous.
It be what it is.
Are babies brave?
No, I wouldn't call a baby brave. I mean, at least maybe we like play for words here, but no, I wouldn't say.
Right. So it seems like bravery is going to require the acknowledgement of that possibility of evil.
No, but well, God didn't have a world of just pure babies. Like he could have adults like you and I. There'd just be no danger.
Yeah, we would be adults, but we'd effectively be infants in that we would have no serious responsibility, right? No virtues again, because we would have no danger to overcome. So when he says, well, we wouldn't be babies, we'd be adults, that wouldn't really answer the point. We'd still be babies in the sense of, and I'll make this point later, it's like what he wants, if he truly wants to world zero suffering, right? This isn't one of those atheists saying, well, I'll allow some suffering, but maybe more grotesque kinds I have a problem with. He's saying he wants a world with zero suffering. How are we not at that point? God's just human pets that he's taking care of and keeping comfortable.
Which, to be fair, I think we would all want that. But
well, I'm not going to jump ahead. Eric's going to get to.
Okay.
So let's bring in Stelma Smith, good friend of mine. He says, brave is not the absence of fear. It's
No, that super chatter there is pretty handsome guy. I don't know.
strength to act in spite of fear. So bravery definition
$10
can't
to
exist
yourself?
without fear, meaning it can't be obtained apart from something to be afraid of.
That's a cool definition. I mean, I like Oxford.
No, you
definition
gotta
better
pause the
than
video.
Google.
We gotta touch on
But
that for a
if
second.
you're
Did you just donate $10 to yourself?
Uh,
How does that work? Did you put it from your left pocket to your right pocket? Like, how did that work?
I don't know.
Anyway,
Are you making a joke? Or are you actually?
a little both. A little bit of both. Like, kind of a joke. I'm like, also, did you just donate to yourself?
No, I donated to him when this was live.
Oh,
This is the playback. Yeah, but
And
no,
you thought I'm qualified to debate any of this?
but as he goes, oh, that's a cool definition, but I prefer Oxford. First of all, what Eric Googled was Webster, to be clear. But what I said, again, they just kind of went through it too fast. I'm not going to fault him too much, but what I just said, they did not contradict Eric's definition at all. I just don't think he quite grasped the definition Eric gave.
Meaning
It
bravery.
was an Oxford definition, but
Google uses Oxford. But
I'll take your word for it.
But what I'm saying is, so in this,
Never
this is
take the
important
word
part.
for it, Eric.
If you're going to use his definition of bravery, whereas you need fear to have bravery, then sure. That's why I was saying this is all definitional. Like if you reject my definition of all loving, then suffering does nothing.
And let me also ask, maybe to kind of move in a different direction, but on the same topic, what is wrong with suffering?
Well, my position is that if it's unnecessary suffering, then you are harming somebody's well-being for no reason. Like somebody's well-being is being harmed.
What is the
for
definition
no
of
reason.
unnecessary?
So you look like you work out. Do you suffer when you work out?
No.
Is there pain going through your body when you work out?
There's pain, but I wouldn't call that suffering.
Okay, no, fair enough. So there's pain. Now, some may experience suffering, right? Do you think you're more virtuous than someone who
Doesn't look like he works out.
does not work out because they don't like the pain or they're afraid of the pain?
Yes,
Would you be more-
I would say I'm more disciplined because of that reason. I'm more disciplined in that specific area.
So I think you already see my point. There are some virtues that are obtained that some people won't obtain because they don't have that quality to obtain it. They can develop it, but they don't have it.
The discipline that I have, if God is all powerful, he could give me that discipline.
Then I think you misunderstand the
Without
definition of discipline, because how can something be disciplined if you don't have to work for it?
Yeah. So okay. So this gets back again to this is something I actually want to discuss. Right. There was a clip of Steven Crowder that I will not play on the show because he did specifically ask. He lets people clip his stuff, but he did specifically ask that anything he does on Rumble exclusive, people not clip. And this was on Rumble exclusive where he discussed this. So
Because you got to pay for it.
Yeah, exactly. So I will respect him and not play it. I would like you to hear it in his words, and I did mean to watch it again before the show so I could articulate it more in his words, but
Are you addressing me or the
it
audience?
was to the audience.
Okay.
And it's funny, and Crowder was actually doing it in a completely different context, but it was along these lines, right? So notice Eric, and yeah, they can quibble over whether you would call working out in the gym suffering. The point that Eric's making still stands here, and here's the point, which is, look, it's much easier to sit home, eat nachos, and watch TV than to go work out.
That sounds targeted.
It's easier, but what's more worthwhile? Who would you consider the more virtuous person? The person who takes.
We know you are.
The person who takes the hard road, but you can apply that to anything. Let's get political here. Who's more virtuous, the person who gets pregnant and takes the easy way out and gets an abortion, or the person who, yeah, motherhood's going to be really hard, but I'm going to choose to take on that responsibility? A lot of pain that comes along with that. It's the harder road to take. Who's more virtuous? Right? Beyond just the clickbaity things we can say about it on the political front. That's pretty much any aspect of life we can think of is 99% of the time, the harder road to take is the more virtuous one. The people who take that harder road over the easy road are the people we admire, right? Apply that to this discussion and apply that to spirituality, right? This whole discussion of God, get rid of suffering and be way easier. Sure. How would God develop virtuous creatures? If that's what God, he just like, well, if you reject my definition of all loving, yeah, I do. I think part of the way God loves us is developing us into mature, virtuous creatures who can enjoy a relationship with him. I think that's way more loving than just taking care of us like his cute little human pets and keeping us happy, and we just stay naive and dumb and stupid for all eternity.
And see, for the most part, I can understand where this comes from, like the idea of like, you know, the all loving would take care of and remove all, you know, just as a shakier example, you know, I'm married, and so if I see my wife in pain, first thing I would want to do, because I love her, do whatever I can, whether it's within my abilities or not, to get rid of it, but to exhaust every option I could to stop the pain and the suffering from it. So I can see from that logic and be like, okay, if I would do that for my wife, why wouldn't God do that for me? I can see where it comes from. I think it neglects the cause and effect of suffering, like what
Right.
leads to it.
Yeah. And
in most cases.
Yeah, and not to go off on a rabbit trail, like atheists will often do this. Well, what would you do for your child? What would you do here? And it's like, yeah, there is the God-man distinction, right? God has an eternal view. He has different goals. And yeah, I could go down that analogy road. I won't for sake of time. But yeah, even to take the marriage example in a different direction, it's like, again, hard road versus easy road. If your marriage hits a like really hard, rocky territory, what is it easier to run? Be like, well, I'll find somebody new, somebody new, or do I stay and work through it? It's going to be painful. It's going to be hard. What's more virtuous? What's more worthwhile?
But
right.
I think that's a depends on the situation kind of.
Of course, yes, there are biblical justifications for divorce, right? I'm talking generally, right? Like,
okay,
I'm talking about like the kind of hard times any couple would face, not extreme situations of like abuse or adultery or those kinds of things. Caveat. This is one. Yeah, the thing on the show we always have to say caveat.
I need a soundboard with a caveat button.
Right, that was our feminism episode, was caveat, right? And yeah, lost my train of thought. Right, but the point that I'm making is we intuitively understand this with so many aspects of life. As soon as it comes to God, we jump to the easy road would be better and that would be more loving. And yeah, I do think it's like it comes down to, and this is something that I might mention later, because this was it was one of the things I addressed when we debated Richard Suttles, which is from the atheist purview, they are the arbiters of morality. And so this criticism, and I've said this for a while, and I've even argued with other Christians and Facebook groups about this, is that what the problem of evil always ultimately boils down to is the atheist saying, I would prefer if God did it this way. There's not a logical problem. There's not an evidential problem. It comes down to what you prefer. And I actually appreciate him going this route because it makes it so much more clear when he's explicitly saying, I prefer zero suffering. Like, cool. I'm glad that I go through suffering can develop virtues. I definitely choose the universe God picks over the one he picks. So these people put themselves as the moral authority of the universe, judge God according to it, and then want to take virtues away from the rest of us. Sorry, no. But yeah, go ahead and jump back in here.
Record it. I think by definition, I have to look it up.
I would have the best discipline because it came straight from God.
Yeah, but
it'd be something that I didn't earn. It's from God Himself that He just gave to me.
Yeah,
I much prefer that discipline.
Right. That seems like
No, first of all, I mean, I could just argue that definitionally it's not even the same thing. But like, okay, yes, if God perfected discipline in me,
right? That's why I'm like, I get
sure,
it. Like, if it came from God, it would be the best thing.
But he's talking about it in a deterministic way. So actually, what's more virtuous? If God determines me to be disciplined, or if I choose freely to be disciplined, what's more virtuous?
I would argue the choice, because it's going against your natural inclinations to not want to do the hard thing.
Exactly. And that's actually a brilliant point. I didn't think to articulate it that way. Is you have to go, what he wants is if God perfects discipline in us, then there is no going against other inclinations. There's no strength. And in fact, it would even take discipline. You would just go to the gym. It would eliminate discipline entirely.
Well, clearly I am like clear sense of physique, so I know about the gym, but like, yeah, exactly to your point. Right, because like even he said, in the earlier point where it's like he doesn't consider it, pain, he doesn't consider it suffering, he considers it his discipline, and to do so, it's like not everybody does. I certainly don't. I'm like, this sucks, and I want nothing to do with it, and I wish this was way easier. Yeah, but like that's the whole point. It's like, but I did it anyway. Yeah. Like the key takeaway there is I did it anyway.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
Want to, exactly. It's hard, but I did it anyway.
Exactly, and God just determining us to do things would completely eliminate that. All right, I just realized we're coming up on 40 minutes here, so I'm going to probably fail to interrupt less, but we'll see.
Like God wants you to be lazy. I don't think God wants.
No, it's not laziness. No, God, no. So if God is good and He's all loving, He's not going to make me lazy. He's going to make me disciplined. He's going to make me strong. He's going to make me brave.
You're missing my point. Okay. That is a bad lazy approach, if you will, to obtaining something virtuous. I think the very obtaining of something virtuous is going to require some things that you may not like, but that's what also differentiates people. Now, if you're saying, I know you used to be Reformed, I don't know if this is spilling over into your atheism, but if you're saying, can God just cause everyone to believe and do a certain thing? There's no free will, no working out your salvation with fear and trembling, with no, I don't none of that. Right. Yeah, I know. And I'm sure that'll come up in a little bit. But my point is, you're doing an internal critique, right? Because we can go to the free will in a little bit. But if you're doing an internal critique, then you have to critique it as a whole. And as a whole, God wants us to be able to go through these things. God allows these things because it brings about certain virtues. Now, all I hear you saying is, I don't like that God does that. Why can't He just do it to me without me having to obtain it? Well, then you're not doing the very thing that the scriptures require you to do.
No. So I'm not saying that I don't like it. What I'm saying is,
real briefly, that this is exactly what I got into with Richard of why internal critiques from atheists don't work, because they're just smuggling in their own worldview to make the critique. If you take the Christian worldview into account, suffering is Jesus promised we would suffer. Hey, if they persecuted me, they're going to persecute you. The scripture Eric just said, work out your salvation with what? Fear and trembling. It's no longer an internal critique. It's cool you have those preferences, but it doesn't work against the Christian worldview, because that's just not the Christian worldview.
I think we all do. Again, nobody wants to.
Right. But I can say, and I know you've had experiences like this, our producer has, is that when we come out on the other side, the virtues that we have and the things that we have a new view of gratitude towards makes the suffering worthwhile.
Absolutely. I would have never been who I am now without that. And then there's still even things that I'm going to be in 5-10 years there's going to be some tribulation through that I'm gonna, because of, become better side of.
Yeah. So we can continue with this. Yeah, I mean that's the point, is you're grateful for the suffering, you're grateful for what it produced. And again, not to rehash an old video, but that's a choice. Again, it comes back to the free will. That's a choice. right? Suffering doesn't necessarily lead to or cause you getting better. You have to choose it. You have to choose to humble yourself and learn and grow and then respond with gratitude and genuine repentance and a willingness to change and be better. Or you can respond by becoming bitter, angry, hateful towards God, all of that. That's what part of the virtue is the choice.
I think I've never been.
Right.
I've had those moments.
Yeah. And it's a struggle, but that the point being is that choice is an essential part of that. And I think Eric was making a brilliant point here, is that his reformed Calvinistic theology is rolling over into his atheism.
The lack of an idea.
Yeah.
It would contradict my definition of all loving. Because
Why should we accept your definition of all loving?
That's a nice definition.
Well, you don't have to. But what you were asking, what would disprove a God? And I was giving you the criteria. Depending on how you define that God and how you define those properties that he has, you could disprove him. So if you can reject that definition.
Right. In other words, the burden of proof would be on you to show that God would want that God would want to eliminate suffering, and that suffering is quote unquote unnecessary.
Right, because then it's like, okay, but if that's not my
definition
definition of God, then what is your argument of disapproval?
Exactly. And they're just bad definitions. Who defines loving as I'm definitely going to eliminate all suffering? Like, to his point, a particular demonstration of love might to be in a particular instance eliminate the present
Well,
suffering.
yeah, it's going back to the idea of,
but it's not all
as the
encompassing.
husband, I want to, and this isn't going to apply to every, because again, there's an understanding of unnecessary suffering, and while that hasn't been a defined term, we understand that things happen and there's not really a reason for it, and evil and fallen and things just unfortunately happen. But in a lot of cases, it's I almost lost my train of thought on that one. The definition of unnecessary has been proven. So it's again that cause of, well, if God set these parameters as to don't do X, Y, and Z thing, would that not be him attempting to prevent without interfering with free will, attempting to prevent the suffering? But we made the choice to not listen. It's the ideology of growing up when your mom's like, hey, don't touch the stove, it's hot, and you do it anyway. Your mom tried, but you touched the stove and it hurt, and there was some suffering there.
Yeah.
I almost rambled a little bit. I'm not gonna lie, I blind tap.
No, it's okay. and now again, I won't rehash it. Go check out last week's episode. I did make a longer case for why I reject just categorically the ideas of both.
You're able to make a longer case because
yeah. Unnecessary suffering, and I reject non-resistant non-belief. But again, go check last week's episode for more on that.
What you're saying is not correct. So you're rejecting a certain view of God, but it wouldn't be the Christian God.
Well, no. So there are plenty of Christians, and they have come on my show. There was one on it last week. Well, I was on his show, and he was absolutely saying that God is all loving.
Oh, I believe God is all loving.
Yeah.
That's the definition of all loving.
Okay, and that's fine. But there are absolutely Christians who would accept the definition that I gave them until I saw. Oh yeah,
that doesn't make them right.
Yeah, so Christians can be wrong about something. Just because a Christian believes it doesn't make it Christianity or biblically based.
Sure. But we're talking about which God is biblical.
You and I discussed this not too long ago, actually.
Yes, what has been our theme as of late? Go check back our 2 videos criticizing Protestantism, which again, Protestant, very committed Protestant. They got a lot of issues.
Not only that, it was kind of one of my arguments toward Richard, where it was, okay, cool. Just because I'm a Christian, I believe X things and not Y things, that doesn't necessarily mean that I believe that I am one of those things. Right. It's the idea with the electrician, where it's like, yeah, but I reject Ohm's law, so everything else is right.
Yeah.
And the electricity is still going to bolt me. Like,
okay, so it's all depending on the definitions we use. So those are definitions.
Sure. So far we've established that you can disprove the existence of a God that I don't believe in, that Christians shouldn't believe in. What other evidence would you say that you have that there is no God?
So I can create some other God that also has contradicting properties, and I could disprove him in the same way.
I'm not sure if I follow that.
There's an all-powerful God who has the desire to get rid of all oranges. The existence of oranges would disprove that God. So, but
no, that doesn't logically follow. Just because God has the ability to do X, but X is still around, doesn't mean therefore that God doesn't exist.
No. I gave him 2 properties. He is all-powerful. He has the ability to do X, and he has the desire to do X. So there's an ought, right? Like I gave him a value in the premise.
You're saying that
it doesn't logically follow that oranges wouldn't exist. Again, to go back to what I debated with Richard, like, what if God did want to eliminate all oranges, but at the same time, he wanted to develop in us obedience. So he simply tells us to eliminate all oranges.
Am
Some of us try and some of us don't.
Am I overreaching, or is this literally not the tree of knowledge of good and evil?
Right. I mean, the point being, like, is, and I've learned this skill from Andrew Wilson, is like you can tangle with hypotheticals all day and just show that what they want to logically follow doesn't.
Because you use oranges, right?
Mhm.
Trying to stick to your analogy. You're saying in this hypothetical world, God ought to get rid of oranges?
Yeah, that's what would follow, because I put a value in the second premise. So the first premise, God has the ability to remove all oranges.
Mhm.
Second premise, God has the goal of removing all oranges.
And you're using oranges to replace suffering, right? So we're back to that.
Well, no. I was just, you asked about what other God could I disprove, and I'm saying it is all definitional. If you're saying like Jesus, for example, the God,
Cool. Disprove all the gods we don't believe in. Keep having
You
fun with
believe
that.
right now, I couldn't disprove that God. So
Oh, that's quite a concession.
unless I could, you talked about him further, and I could like identify some sort of contradiction in his existence. But if we don't do that, then I couldn't possibly disprove
that's our
that
God.
Well, we're just asking for evidence at this point, right?
Okay.
And by the way, Stillman chimed in again. He said, if you're arbitrarily determined to have certain
Oh, you
qualities,
donated yourself.
those qualities can't be virtuous by definition. Virtue requires choice in spite of the temptation to do opposite. Stillman's cooking tonight. But yeah, you don't have to respond to that. 'Cause I know you were
arbitrarily.
Sounds good.
determined. That's a
Thanks,
that's a
Eric.
weird way to start off a sentence. To me, that sounds like a contradiction.
and he goes on, God wants virtuous creatures. If you prefer, we just be pets that are made happy all the time. I don't care. I'm glad you aren't in charge of the universe.
I mean, so, okay. If
You're a little saucy that
being
night,
in
I
a
was.
suffering-free universe where all good things happen, I don't have to worry about kids being, raped and murdered and wars and starving to death and all that kind of stuff. I would absolutely be a pet.
Remember,
And notice he
I don't
goes
know why
right
you
to
would
the
change
emotional
the
appeal.
awful things that happen in this world just so you can not be a pet. To me, that is
but
just
so
a
yeah,
very
kind of. I
selfish,
don't want that
very
either.
egocentric point of view.
Yeah. Okay. What did he just say? He just said, yeah, I would prefer no suffering and to be happy all the time. And if you like suffering, that's just, it's a very egocentric, selfish worldview. How is it not selfish for him to rob other people who would say, my suffering was worth it? I'm grateful that I went through that. I'm grateful that I've developed virtue on the other side. And I'm grateful for the people I get to take care of, for their virtue, all of this. And he wants to rob that from all of them so we can just be happy all the time. How is he not guilty of the same thing? I could just say, well, you're selfish. And that's why I said, I'm glad you're not in charge of the universe.
Yeah, see, I'm just stuck on the examples he gave, and I'm like, and you think we do want that? Is that what you're inferring?
Right. He immediately goes to extreme examples, and it's just to do the emotional appeal,
Right.
which is this. What happens is they often just mask an emotional appeal
Right,
as
it's
a
like,
logical
man, I
argument, and
think
it's
that's
not.
deplorable and evil too, and so does the Bible.
Right. And again, they'll get to heaven in a little bit, but like also if that individual, whatever suffering they went through, if they are in heaven and they look back at their existence and especially the role that it played in God's grand plan for all of human history, and they see it as worth it, and part of that suffering has developed the kind of character that is now enjoying fellowship with God for eternity, you want to rob them all of that by the universe you want to create. How is your worldview not selfish? So,
Which, to be fair, is a little assumptional based on what we case.
yeah.
I would absolutely be a pet.
What do you think of?
suffering.
Well,
Cool.
I'm tempted to say, I mean, I can see where that comes from your Reformed theology. If
I
by
mean,
pet, you mean
fair. My
causing
cat has a
determined,
dope life.
I would disagree with that view of Scripture and in Christianity, though again, I have lots of Calvinist friends and precept friends. But I mean, heaven would be free of all that, would it not?
Yeah, and yet there's free will in heaven.
Absolutely.
Right, and that's why I don't want to talk about other Christians on the show, but there's Christians who they'll say stuff like they said this on my show.
I've addressed
The
this
reason why
before.
God allows
Maybe in
sin
the last
is
episode,
so
I
we
can't
can have
remember.
free
But
will.
Oh, we
And
have another
it makes no
conversation
sense
there.
because there's no sin in heaven, yet there's free will. Like there's no contradiction in it. But
That makes perfect sense to me. So I'm not saying God allows sin so
Yeah,
well.
you're the first person that I've ever met and agree with me on that.
But we should talk more often.
very briefly, only because it came up, but again, go check out it. I discussed it on a previous episode. I can't remember exactly which one. The reason that you can have both free will in heaven and no suffering is because we've learned from the suffering, right? We're not Adam and Eve. Adam and Eve were also created in a that's a whole thing. Was the original creation perfect? It wasn't. But but the point is Adam and Eve were completely naive as to what a world with grotesque suffering like we know today looked like. So their choice to sin was a lot easier. And if God kept us all naive like he wants, God too, right? We're pets. He said, I'd like to be a pet. We're just kept comfortable. We're not given any challenges, any suffering. We're just kept naive. God's also going to have to restrain our free will, because that naivety would lead to bad choices because we don't know any better. The reason heaven has both free will and non-suffering is because we've experienced a world of suffering where we know what human
So
sin leads to, where we know what bad
imply
choices lead to.
There is a potential for a second fall? Third fall?
If you mean logically possible, yes. Feasible and potential, no, because one, we just stand on what scripture would teach, which is that doesn't happen. And number two, again, our view is that the kinds of people that end up in heaven are people who have learned from the suffering. So while it would be logically possible for them to use their free will to fall again or sin, they won't, right? Because they don't take that perfected state of affairs for granted. Also, our nature is different, and Eric's going to make a point there in a minute.
I've never heard that.
So absolutely. So, I mean, I'll let you take it where you want to take it. But here's an analogy I like to use in heaven, because so far it seems like it's just, which I get from atheists a lot. It's almost like, I don't like that God does this, therefore what? You know, it doesn't follow therefore God doesn't exist. It doesn't follow therefore that's evidence against him. It's stating one's preferences aren't evidence that a God doesn't exist, right? Going to heaven.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, you don't think you're strawman an atheist? I've never heard any atheist to start off an argument with, I don't like the fact that God exists.
Right. I'm rewording it to say that's what I'm hearing. Because
Okay,
I mean,
that's not what they're saying. Like, no atheist would say, I don't like the fact that God doesn't exist. Like, they're not an atheist. Because not liking God or not liking the existence of God is different from not believing in the existence of God.
so let me rephrase. It sounds like some atheists are saying this. If this concept of God is true, I don't like it for X, Y, and Z reasons. Therefore, I don't believe in this concept of God. One's preferences isn't evidence that something doesn't exist. I don't like that mosquitoes exist and bite me. Doesn't mean they don't exist. So going to the heaven aspect, because I think this also gets into the suffering part, because you're essentially asking, how can there be, it's usually posed this way. Well, if we have free will in heaven, how will God prevent another fall? But what if it's the case that heaven is comprised of people that went through certain things on earth that have, in a sense, shown themselves to be faithful, so that when they get to heaven, they'll be the type of people that won't want to sin. And here's what I mean by that. When I get to heaven, or let's talk about now. Right now, I have the free will to go outside and eat a pile of dog crap, right? I have that freedom. But I don't. Why not? Because it's utterly unappealing to me. I find it disgusting.
Okay.
Well, imagine now.
Like, where are you going with this?
That in heaven and in God's presence, sin becomes like a pile of dog crap to me, utterly unappealing. Now, the convicting aspect, of course, is that the reason I still sin now is because I don't find sin utterly unappealing. And that's something that convicts me. Point being, though, is that if people who make it to heaven are the type of people who will find sin disgusting when they're in God's presence, well, then you have free will and people who freely choose not to sin. There's no logical contradiction there. There's no problem with that there. And these are the type of people that have shown themselves to be faithful.
It just becomes a matter of perspective.
And why is that possible? Why is that possible? Because God developed virtue in us. The very kind of world this guy wants with no suffering, guess what? He can have one day if he repents and accepts Jesus. He can have that in eternity with heaven, but that's only possible if he gets rid of this idea of, well, God doesn't need to allow suffering to develop virtues in us. That's why God allows suffering. Isn't that the ultimate irony in this? Is he wants God to eliminate suffering, so we have a particular world. Well, God is trying to both achieve that world and have virtuous creatures who are co-authors who are part of that. That requires suffering. It's paradoxical in a way, but not logically incoherent or contradictory, because that is how God achieves the world he wants. It's just that in that world, we get to both have no suffering and be morally mature, virtuous creatures. The world he wants is the no suffering, but not with the virtuous creatures. Now, he might quibble with that. He says, no, I want God as absolute with the virtues, but we've already made the case for why that is incoherent.
So I think it makes perfect sense. I think it makes logical sense. It's a satisfactory view that gives the consistency and coherence of the Christian worldview.
So, well, people who find God disgusting, right? And you had, I think you compared this to you could go out and eat dog crap, right? And you wouldn't want to, right? Because you find it disgusting. Did you choose to find dog crap disgusting? No, the answer is no. Like your physiology is structured in such a way, like you're not going to like feces. Like,
sure.
It just doesn't work that way.
But a few things. There are people who
Right, but it's not virtuous to choose not to eat dog crap.
Also,
real quick, because that's the context of which he's saying this. Like, I get the point he's trying to make, is if God could determine you to not like dog crap, he could determine you to not like sin. Okay, the difference is there's no reason for it to be considered virtuous to not eat dog crap. So that's the ingredient he's missing. Again, what he's doing, I think Eric's literally about to say this, is he's arguing the analogy instead of the point of the analogy. So, what were we about to say? Okay.
That's all right.
Hey, shout out to someone who I checked my text, made a brilliant point. Just real quick to go back to when you were talking about, if I could take the suffering away from my wife, I would. But when you can't take away that suffering, what do you do instead? You're there with her. And if you
Did
look
my
at that
wife
from
text
God's point of view, he's there with us when we're suffering.
My wife texted you?
No. Somebody else. Shout out to them. They know who they are.
Eat it, maybe claim to enjoy it. We don't have to talk about those people.
Okay, yeah.
But second, you're arguing the analogy, not the point of my analogy. The point is not whether or not I freely chose to not, eat feces, or like feces rather. The point is whether or not I freely choose to do so.
Right, but what I'm saying is,
Right.
you didn't choose what you find and what you do not find disgusting. So whatever trait,
Some stuff I
whatever.
do, yeah.
And we won't harp
I
on this. The
disagree.
difference there
And
is
we can get
whether
into
it's
that on the free will
virtuous
part.
to
But
make
what
a
I'm saying is,
choice.
like, the part of my character, the part of my nature that would find any particular thing disgusting, God could just remove it, and then I would now love that thing.
Why do you want a God that does everything for you? Are you like that with your kids?
No, like I don't want God to do everything for me. What we're talking about
Sounds
is
like to me.
no. If God wanted to put everybody in heaven, and there were certain people who had character traits that wouldn't enjoy heaven, he could just change the character trait, and now they would want to be in heaven. They would freely choose.
Why would you force them to do something they don't
Ironically, he rejects the Calvinist God, but that's the God he wants if God exists, is the Calvinist God.
want to do?
He wouldn't force them.
Well, he would force their will. He would change it.
No, he would-
To me, that's like a spiritual.
No, he would
Right, if
change.
you will.
He would change a part of their character where now their will would desire him.
Right. So he's removing free will, right? And he's making people do what he wants rather than what they want. And I say again, as respectfully as possible, I think that's part of the Reformed Calvinism kind of spilling into now your atheism. Sure, if there is no free will, then yeah, God can make people do A, B, C, and D. But if God has given people genuine libertarian freedom, then no, he's not going to do that.
I don't. I think that's an incoherent concept. I do not believe in any free will.
Me
So
neither.
it's hard.
Good. Yeah, I know we're coming up. Well, good. I mean, as long as you're here when we're having him on later this month. So you'll get to meet him. Yeah, we're coming up on the hour here, but I cannot resist but to get into this part with him thinking that the concept of libertarian free will is incoherent because he just respectfully doesn't know what he's talking about here. We're going to show why.
To even.
Did you really come to believe it?
No, I did not.
So why should I believe you?
Well, because I could give you an argument for why it's incoherent.
But if I'm already determined to not believe you, why even waste your time?
No. So you'd be determined. You have a mind that will follow a logical structure. And if I present that to you with the conclusion,
not if I don't have free will. If I don't have free will, I'm not following a logical structure. I may be determined to believe I'm following a logical structure, but I'm just following the determinism. There's no necessary logical structure.
You're putting the wagon before the horse.
Yes,
like it will be determined by the logical structure. So
no, logical structures don't determine anything.
I'm
determinism. There's no logical abstract things don't determine.
Right now,
yeah, quick semantical thing, and philosophers all agree on this, is abstract objects do not stand in causal relation to things in the universe, right? So laws of logic would be an abstract object like numbers, if you take the view of abstract objects existing, but all philosophers agree they don't stand in causal relationship to things. A mathematical formula might follow a mathematical structure, but it's not because those numbers are causing anything, right? There's a relational component, but there's not a causal component. So this part is about to get really complex. If you want it broken down more than I'm going to here, this is years ago. Go back and check out an episode I did with Braxton Hunter. It's from years ago. I played the atheist and debated him and made a much better argument against free will than this guy does. But yeah, check that out if you want that broken down more.
I'm in Washington, D.C.
Mm-hmm.
Washington, D.C. is in the United States. What country am I in?
U.S.
Did you freely? Was that your free will that got you there? No, it wasn't. That was deduction.
Yeah, using my free will to think, to analyze. In fact, thinking, deliberating requires free will.
No,
otherwise you're
because
otherwise you're a passive cog in a machine of determinism. Because because quite frankly, if you were determined to believe that atheism is true because a grapefruit is orange and the square root of 2, you would think that is logical. If you were determined to believe that's logical, you would call it logical structure. But here's the problem with determinism: you have no way to justify or verify your beliefs if everything you believe is determined, including the belief that your beliefs are true. So it undercuts rationality.
Right, and this is where the free will component. So he wants to say he just did this thing. Hey, I'm in Washington D.C. What country am I in? Eric says U.S. See, your conclusion was determined by the logical structure. The problem is determinism negates that, right? He's actually the one getting it backwards, because suppose someone was raised to believe that Washington D.C. was, I don't know, in Germany, right? And so he asks them the same question. They go Germany, and then he tries to argue them out of it. But they are so digging in their heels. They are not going to reject what their parents taught them no matter what. No, Washington, D.C. is in Germany. They, the same way, would say, no, the logical structure of the argument is determining my outcome. The problem is if neither of them have free will, neither of them can get outside to see who is following the logic properly. right? They're both determined to
Right.
think that their version is the most logical version. They both could make the exact same argument. No, the logic is what's determining my belief. No, you were just determined to believe that you're logical, right? In fact, we're just I'll let Eric articulate this point better.
Beliefs and rationality is justified through rules of reason. But you have
You're missing the point, though.
how did I miss the point?
Because if you're determined to believe
Mhm.
that a certain law of logic proves your point or concludes a certain view that you hold to, the problem is that your very belief that your belief is true is also determined. So you could be determined to believe atheism is true because a grapefruit is a square root of 2 and think that's logical, and there's no way to step outside the determinism.
That would not be, but it would not be logical. It would not be rational.
What if someone's determined to believe that it was? Then what?
Okay, so what
And he just has
what would determine their belief?
he presupposes his own libertarian freedom. This is what people always do when they do this. They presuppose libertarian freedom because now he's arguing, no, that logic's bad. This logic is good. But the whole point is, no, logic is supposed to determine our beliefs. If that were the case, then everybody would just agree. Because logic is now standing, laws of logic are now standing in causal relationship to the way we think, and we would all just agree. Right. Right. The fact that we can disagree on where logic leads proves that people can get it wrong. And if he's determined to think that the way he's thinking is the most logical, but the person next to him is also determined to think their way of thinking is the most logical, right? They're both equally determined. He's just presupposing he's right. There's actually no reason to do that. Both of them are equally determined. You would have to be able to step outside of that to see who's actually obeying the logic better.
Right.
As if it's following. Right. Let me rephrase this. So, like, I'm not a philosopher, but I enjoy logic. And what convinces me of different things is an argument following its logical structure.
Which requires free will.
No, it doesn't. Well,
Yes, because you have to evaluate it.
The logic is deterministic. The conclusion
not.
is yes, it is. It's determined.
By what mechanism does logic determine anything?
Well, it's determined by the premises. Like I just gave you one, right? So
Right.
I gave you one, right? I said Washington D.C. is in the United States. I'm in Washington D.C. What country am I in?
Right, U.S. But you're
Right.
you're conflating something that logically follows with being logically or being determined by the laws of logic. That's not how it works. Are you familiar with something called epiphenomenalism?
Epiphenomenalism, no.
It's the idea, which if I'm not mistaken, I think you're a materialist, naturalist. Is that right?
Methodological naturalist.
You don't believe in the soul, correct?
I do not believe in the soul, no.
So everything's physical, right? If that's the case, then all your beliefs, as some would argue, you have people like Jaegwon Kim who makes this argument. This is an atheist philosopher of mine, that your beliefs wouldn't determine anything. They just kind of ride on top of things, but they don't actually determine stuff. It's still the physics and chemistry that's determining everything. So your beliefs don't play any role other than you have the sensation of this belief of something. So your beliefs aren't determining anything. There may be beliefs added on top of the deterministic mechanisms being used, but they're not determining anything.
No, it will be the logical structure that's determining it. I am following premises to its determining conclusion.
And here's a point, and Eric is going to make this argument later. This is a point that, but unfortunately, it gets bypassed way too quickly. He's treating, how should I say this? He thinks that the argument Eric's making is, well, if determinism is true, then beliefs just randomly pop into your head, right? And those beliefs are determined. And he's going, well, no, because determinism includes logic. And if we can evaluate the logic by which those beliefs came to you, then that's how we determine whether the belief you were determined to have was logical or not. The problem is that the logic you used to get there was also as determined, right? And so Eric is, I'll just wait till Eric gives the example and then I'll just build on top of it.
Let me put it this way.
I think you're putting the wagon before the horse, because like you're saying, like you have two premises that follow proper inference rules that gets to one conclusion. That's only one mandated conclusion, and you're saying that I would get there regardless of whether or not the syllogism was sound. And no, I think you're putting the wagon before the horse.
How would you define determinism?
So the determinism would be that all acts are determined. And I'm not necessarily I don't necessarily believe everything's determined. What I do negate is free will. There's a possibility of randomness, but that doesn't get you free will either.
What?
So you're not a determinist, or you're not a hard determinist, or
It's the Tom Jump argument to say that something is either determined or it's random, and it's a dichotomy, and free will is not a
What
part of that.
determines the random?
They're going to get into. I'm going to have heavy critiques for it. He wants to think that randomness can escape the deterministic mechanisms, and it can't. But I'll make that case when he says that.
are you a compatibilist?
No, I'm not a compatibilist. I do not. Compatibilism is essentially just determinism from my view.
It's
what I'm saying is So you have two possibilities. You have determinism and you have randomness.
No, those aren't the only two.
Randomness is just not determined.
Are you saying so? When you say determinism, let's start there. Define that for me.
So determinism is just the belief that any act is just determined by the prior state of affairs.
I mean, that would be determinism, be it hard determinism or soft determinism.
Right. And so what I'm saying,
determinism.
I'm saying there could be some randomness. Like if you get to like the most fundamental part of reality, whatever that is, I don't see how it could have a cause. So it probably act in some random way. But what I'm saying is that doesn't get you free will. Randomness doesn't get you there.
So do you reject the law of causal closure?
The law of causal closure.
That every physical event must have a prior physical cause within a closed system?
I'm not sure if there could be a properly closed system.
Interesting. Because most atheists would hold to a closed system, and they bring up the law of causal closure, and it's an argument for determinism.
I mean, I don't know. Like you're saying, like you're talking about like some sort of like vector of space that cannot interact with another part.
Say it again, or rephrase that.
So you're saying like it would be like, are you talking about like some sort of vector of space that could not interact with whatever's outside of it? So like it couldn't cause. There could never be any sort of causality, no causal relationship.
You're asking about the law of causal closure?
Yeah, that's what I was asking about.
No, so the law of causal closure, here's how most atheists would use the law of causal closure. The universe is a closed system, so you cannot have energy being created or destroyed or coming in from the system. Only things within the system are allowed as explanatory. Only within the system you have the explanatory.
I'm going to try to skip this part. I don't know exactly how far to skip out. I'm going to skip a little bit, but just to point out real quick that randomness doesn't rescue you from the way determinism undermines the truth, or at least the ability to know whether or not your beliefs are true. Because even if you had a mechanism that generated random outcomes, those would still be prior conditions determining what happens next.
Right.
Even if the result is random, we don't have any control over that. Right now, he's going to make a big error here. He thinks that randomness is not compatible with causing at all.
We got a comment. Pull that one up. It's an argument.
Monitors right.
A argument in our.
Yeah, the truth value, BJ Hagberg says, the truth value associated with a premise is determined by objective interpretations of evidence. If we are determined to believe something, there is no existence of logical thinking. Yeah, that's a brilliant point, and it actually ties back, funny enough, into the virtue discussion, because often people who are being more logical are thought of as virtuous because, hey, you're choosing with your free will to believe the thing that logically follows, and maybe if that's against your preference or prior desires for what to be true, you're still choosing to believe what's logical. So even then, he's right. Logical thinking would really just be a descriptive thing. It wouldn't actually be a thing in the way that Eric and us would understand it. And again, tying it back into earlier, it wouldn't be virtuous either. Thank you for that comment.
Very positing of things explaining something out. So on that view, God isn't going to be used as an explanation. My soul won't be used as an explanation because it's a closed system. There's nothing from the outside feeding information or energy into it. There's nothing like that going on. Shagwan Kim, he's also made this argument about the law of causal closure, that every physical event is going to have a prior physical cause. Let's start there. Do you agree?
No, I reject that.
So there can be non-physical causes.
No, I didn't say non-physical cause. So you asked if every physical event is going to have a physical cause.
A prior physical cause.
A prior physical cause. And no, I
will.
reject that. That's why I was kind of getting into like the fundamental nature of reality when we talk like quantum physics, like in the quantum fields, whatever is going on there. Like it that seems to be random.
But even if it's random, it's still caused by something, right?
No, it wouldn't be. If it's caused by something, it's determined. Like if I kick a ball, right? The place that the ball lands is determined by the amount of force that I kicked it, the direction, the density of the air, the surface that it lands on, if it's flat, all kinds of stuff. It's determined by a bunch of factors. It's also caused by those things. I think you could use cause and determine interchangeably.
I was going to say, so he actually kind of refutes his own case here with this example. If I kick a ball and I just want to kick it as hard as I can, I don't care where it goes, right? I kick it. I just kick it just because I want to kick it. Where it lands is going to be random because there was no aim or direction, right?
Random to our perception, but based on the criteria of what was placed onto it, it was.
Well, that's my point. Is where it lands is random in the sense of there was no goal, there was no aim.
We don't know where it's going to go.
Right. Well, but you're jumping ahead because you understand where I'm going here. No, it's okay. You're just automatically understanding this. Is even though where it lands is random, it still is determined.
The friction, force.
Exactly. The direction I happen to be facing. If I missed and kicked it on the side instead of in the center, right?
Yeah.
All of the
otherwise known as-
deterministic factors are still there, and
Other-
yet the landing place is random in the sense of that there was no aim or goal for where it would go.
Otherwise known as causes.
Yes, exactly. So things can be both random and determined. He doesn't seem to understand that at all.
I mean, it sounds like that definition just comes down to perception,
Yeah.
random to us, not to the way the
Right.
physics works.
The reason he's misunderstanding is because he wants to think if something is determined, there can only be one outcome.
Right.
That's the mistake. Is no, there can be multiple outcomes, and those outcomes might be random again in the sense of describing where it lands without aim or direction, but it still is determined by the things. And any, let's say, mistakes I would make, what force I would make, if that is determined by prior physical forces, like the atoms in my brain,
Sure.
and those kinds of things, yeah, it's still determined, even if there's randomness there. And so even with, this is kind of the point I was making earlier, is that even if you have a mechanism that generates random outcomes, the mechanism still determines those outcomes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so randomness and determinism don't.
Right. Again, it
are
just
in
comes down
conflict.
to the percent. Who is it random to?
But there may be some part of reality that is causeless, that is random, and that would be non-determined. My point is, so if there's a fundamental nature of reality, to say that it had a cause would be a contradiction, because whatever caused that thing would now be the most fundamental part.
I'm not sure I follow that.
Right. Okay. All right, so, like, think about like what caused you, right? You can say your parents caused you, what caused your parents, their parents, and you can keep going all the way back to the
God.
You could go back. You can go back to God, sure.
Argument
I
from
mean,
contingency. Yeah.
But I mean, the problem, I wouldn't use God for this argument because you think God exists eternally. But I'm saying it could be something.
I still use
that-
God.
Okay, well, this could be something that is fundamental where it has no prior cause. It just is. That thing would behave randomly. It wouldn't
No,
be
why?
determined because if it was determined, then there was something that caused that,
You're conflating.
and that means it is no longer fundamental.
You're conflating determinism with a looser sense of determine. I determined to be on this live stream. Doesn't mean I was caused by something prior to myself.
Well, this
Yeah,
part's
you
funny.
definitely caused something prior to yourself.
So
Like, well, I mean, I could say it. I could prove it. Like I emailed you.
That caused me?
Yes, that caused you.
what's your evidence for that?
You responded to the email
How's that evidence of causation?
because you responded directly to a message that I sent.
Therefore, I'm
I said,
causally
hey,
determined?
hey, Eric, you want to have a conversation? You said, sure. Yeah, like
There-
all of that. Those are all causes. But it isn't just
But
caused by that.
that's not determinism or causal determinism.
So
I'm going to be a little insulting here.
Oh boy.
Give me an advance. Not that bad. His argument for determinism here
We just had such an
is
being respectful.
he emailed Eric. Remember, this is an argument for determinism against libertarian freedom, right?
Mhm.
He emailed Eric, and that caused him to respond and set up the live stream. He could have ignored your email, dummy. Sorry, my only insult there. But I really want you to get that point. Could have ignored your email. How is this an argument? Now, maybe you think,
I ignore them constantly.
yeah, he chose to respond to your email. And all of this stuff we're going to get into with his confusion of causes for existence versus causes for choices, all he's doing is pointing out there are influences. Sure. Influences that may even largely be out of our control. Now, they're certainly not completely out of our control. But an influence is not a deterministic causal mechanism. Not the same thing. Right? Now, maybe you don't believe, maybe you just reject my premise that he could have ignored your email because you reject libertarian free will. But even purely semantically here, it does not follow that determinism is true because you send him an email and that caused him to respond when he could have ignored it. There you go.
I don't know what you said causal determinism, but remember, like I think cause and determine, you can use those words interchangeably to say something caused something, to say that it determined it. Like if you were to push an object, the distance that the object goes is determined by the amount of force applied to it. That's also the cause of it, the amount of force that was applied to it.
So I think you're unintentionally conflating determinism with just to determine something or to cause something. I don't think they're necessarily interchangeable, but
So-
if we're talking determinism, it's the idea that all effects are necessarily caused by prior antecedents, right? They're sufficient
Yes.
to guarantee their effects, or
And-
that when applied to human beings, that's every action, thought, beliefs, and everything is determined.
So humans, I think, are determined as far as every act that happens in reality. I am not convinced of that, but it doesn't get you
You're
free
only-
will.
But you're
No,
determined
it's
to
not.
believe that, aren't you?
Would I be determined to believe?
You're determined to believe that, right?
Yes.
Whether it's rational or not, you're determined to believe
No,
it. Do you agree?
no. So, okay, so like I happen to have a mind that
That's
is
another
guided
point
by
where he could
rationality.
have replied.
So
It's guided by non-rational processes, all rational processes.
no. They're rational processes. Like it's
How do you know?
operated by the laws of physics. You can predict them. You know,
Okay,
you know,
so if
you know,
the
you know
laws
what
of physics,
equation is?
if the laws of
Can
physics
you be
are causing your
rational
beliefs,
and
that's all
predetermined?
rational. Those are not.
No.
Because I don't think that's how that works.
Yeah. Rationality requires free will
Free
to
will
evaluate. Again,
to-
back to the prior comment.
Rationality requires there an option to be irrational.
Yeah. And if both are equally determined, right, the deterministic mechanism
Then
would be functioning the
can
same for
make
both individuals.
choice.
There's actually no real distinction there.
Right.
And again, the person who's being irrational thinks they're being rational. How do you determine which one is actually being rational? You would have to step outside of it and
Mhm.
evaluate it freely.
And with
Non-rational mechanisms determining your alleged rationality.
I think the laws of physics determine everything except
So you're
the
determinist.
except the most fundamental. I said except the most fundamental thing.
That's fine.
Wait-
So let's just stick at the at one level. Like let's set aside the most fundamental. You're determinist at the base or at the surface level, if you will. Would that be correct?
Yes.
There's not too
Now-
much more here.
You're saying that your email caused me to respond.
Yeah.
What's your argument for that? Because that's a non sequitur. It doesn't follow because
What would you have responded to if I didn't email you?
that doesn't answer the question of free will.
what? Whoa,
No.
what?
No. So you were asking, how do I prove that your response to me was a cause? It's kind of like implied.
It's causing you to
It-
determine.
Does an
so
email
you
hold a-
responded to me.
I freely
Like-
respond to, yeah.
You can use that. You can sure you freely responded to me. I can say colloquially, as in like it's not like I put a
I mean,
gun to
literally.
your head.
I mean, libertarianly freely respond to.
No, yeah, libertarian free will, like that's not a thing. Like
Let's
it,
talk about it.
okay, sure.
So why don't you?
Is that an email or
Pointing-
a threat? Is it an email or a
Exactly.
threat? Like-
Exactly. Pointing out that the email was one domino in the series of dominoes, if you're calling them events that led to the outcome, right?
Right.
Doesn't negate the fact that the following domino, being Eric's choice, could have been one domino, the choice to respond and result of what happened, or the other domino, which could have
Yeah, it
been
just
to
means there's-
ignore it. Guess what?
It just means
Eric
there's a
had
set
the
of-
freedom to choose one of those domino pathways, and two different pathways could have unfolded. And
Right, I
this
was-
is the one that just happened to
I was
unfold.
about to say all that means is there's just a path of dominoes that didn't get knocked over.
Exactly.
I'll
just
define
standing
libertarian
there.
free will, and then you tell me where I'm wrong. I would define libertarian free will as I'm the first mover of my will or actions. Nothing is
Yeah, we're getting
nothing,
real
nothing prior to me is
Nostradamus
causing me
in
to act or will. I'm the first mover of my will or actions.
No, I don't even see how that'd be biblical. Like I mean, it's
Well,
like
as a former Calvinist, I can see why you'd say that.
Yeah, as a former Calvinist, I can
there's a lot of things that you didn't determine. You didn't determine.
Choose this day whom you will serve.
Email.
How long I wanted to gather you under my wing, and you were not willing. Idea being that they are guilty for not being willing, that it was wrong, not that they were determined. If they were determined to be unwilling, how is this a chastisement against them? Right?
When, where, and under what conditions should be born, what time period?
That's
like
totally relevant to free will.
all you said is relevant to free will.
Totally relevant to free will.
It's relevant to the discussion of free will. What I'm saying is you
Not.
didn't choose
not.
any of those things.
I
Like-
don't have to. The
Interest
question is whether I'm
space
the first mover of my will.
relevant.
Not my existence. My will.
Okay, but your will is determined by character traits that you did not choose.
No, it's not.
Okay, so randomness. What is randomness to you? Is it non?
If I'm trying to diet and ignore sweets so that I can become more fit, and someone shoves chocolate cake in my face and tells me to eat it, I didn't choose for that. To his point, there are
chose
things
to
that
eat it.
happen out of your control, but yeah, I do choose if I eat it or not. This doesn't negate free will in any sense. It doesn't logically follow. I'm waiting for one specific point, then we're going to move over to Rumble.
Determined?
There's a debate about that, especially at
Okay.
the quantum level, but something can be random still determined.
Random-
Randomness
not.
is just a reference to
Those are contradictory.
epistemically. Well, as I said, there's a debate about it. I would say that randomness is just epistemically. We don't know the cause of it. Doesn't mean there is no cause.
No. So random would be there's no cause. Like not epistemically. We're not saying that there's something that's so complicated. We're going to say that it's random. No, I'm talking about something that is random. And there's two possibilities according to the law of excluded middle. You have determined. You have non-determined. Right now, free will is something that is neither.
Why can I be the determiner of my will?
Because you need to violate the law of reason. You need to violate excluded.
No,
middle.
I just told you it's determined by me. What's wrong with that?
So you obviously wouldn't be the first determined, like because you were
Obviously.
born. You were born in
Guess
what,
what?
like when were you born? Like the late 80s, the 70s, or what you said?
87.
Okay, 87.
This is why I love language of being co-authors. I mean, that's more poetic, but like, yeah, there's nothing incoherent. This is exactly what Braxton Hunter pointed out to me. which is like, even if you accept the dichotomy of something's either determined or random, that doesn't negate self-determination.
No.
By nature, but what God created me, what God created me to be is an agent with libertarian freedom. Part of the capacity of what God created me to be is something that determines things, that determines my actions. And you can point all day to, well, maybe I didn't determine that I might have a biological inclination towards X. That is not saying that that's pointing to an influence out of my control.
Mm-hmm.
Pointing to influences out of my control does not equal determinism, right? If I am an agent who can choose to act in accordance with that desire or against it.
Yeah.
And again, back to this actually does relate nicely. I didn't realize it at the time when I was watching this earlier, to the discussion of virtues, because that's when you become virtuous. Is if you have an inclination towards something that would be wrong or harmful to yourself or others, and you don't do it.
Right. There was things that happened that you had no say over.
So let's clarify again. But let's clarify again. I'm the first mover of my will, not my existence. You're conflating those two things.
Your will is a product of traits that you have that you did not choose.
And as Braxoner pointed out to me, that all you do by making this argument is you're presupposing determinism. You're not arguing for it.
Yeah.
You're presupposing it by just saying, well, your will was determined. And of course, again, that's what Calvinists believe. That's what they say. We're compatibilists. We believe in both free will and determinism. Yeah, you're free to do what you want. And what more could you want than the freedom to do what you want? But your wants are determined and you can't go against them.
Yeah.
It's just determinism.
Products are influences, not causes.
But they are causes.
You're begging the question of determinism then. You're just assuming determinism and then saying there. It's like you're being a presuppositionalist.
No, I'm not. So remember how I was saying, can you give me an ontological difference between causing something and determining it?
Yeah, so determinism is there's a chain of causation that the next domino falling, if you will, is necessitated by the prior. If I'm the first mover, then I am the first domino, so to speak, when it comes to my will, and nothing prior to me is causing it.
Okay, how did you get there? If there are things that are happening, like, so do you think there's this will that would do nothing, and then there's like another you somewhere, like the soul?
What do you mean this will that won't do nothing?
But, okay, okay. So your will exists for reasons, doesn't it? Well, what are the reasons your will exists?
What are the reasons my will exists?
Yes.
Are we talking like within my worldview because God wanted to create a free creature?
I'm going to go ahead, and so I'm going to give Eric credit for the arguments because I'm just going to repeat it because we do need to move off here and get to Rumble. So the part I was waiting for. I'm just going to articulate myself as best I can. But Tim Stratton's also made these arguments that, again, if determinism is true, it's not only what you think is determined, but how you think about it is also determined. Right. So again, to this idea that, well, but we can justify it with this logical structure. Okay, but the point is that was also determined. So Eric points out that, look, imagine I was a crazy scientist and I somehow could completely control your mind, right?
Yeah.
And one of the things that I caused you to believe is this crazy scientist, and you don't know my motivations, by the way.
Sure.
As the scientist, for why I'm causing you to determine to believe what you believe. Sure. As this crazy scientist, I determine you to believe that, I think the example he uses is God doesn't exist. But then I go further. I want you to think that does not exist. Okay. I determine you to believe God does not exist. But I go further. I want you to think you have reasons for that. But I'm also going to determine you to believe that people with yellow hats always tell the truth no matter what. You then conclude that you have a logical deduction. And I'm even determining your process of doing this, by the way, because I'm in control of everything you think and how you think it, right? So then I causally determine you to believe that God doesn't exist, people with yellow hats always tell the truth, and then I causally determine you to put this logical structure together that says, well, premise one, people with yellow hats always tell the truth. Premise two, this person in the yellow hat told me God doesn't exist. Conclusion, therefore, God doesn't exist. Mm-hmm. And you think you have this logical structure, and I've determined it. Is that belief rational? No. And I could even substitute out the conclusion with something that we all might agree is true. And we would still have to say that the belief is still not rational, even if it happens to be true, because the mechanisms were determined by some source we don't know the motivations of. Right. And so to Tim Stratton's point, is like he said Eric's putting the cart before the horse. He's actually doing that. He's reversing the order. The point is when he says, well, my beliefs are determined by logic and this and that, it's like, yeah, but even the way that you're evaluating that and thinking that your logic is coherent is determined. So if you're trying to pick the random true beliefs versus false beliefs that you have, if they all came about by the same exact mechanism, there's no way to determine which beliefs are true and which beliefs are false.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. So I really wanted to get to that. That's a crucial point there. So yeah, I hope you guys have enjoyed this. Go watch the full debate. I'll link it in the description. Go watch back Eric's past series of debates.
You can also watch it slower.
Yeah, you. And I tried to be nice to the audience. I didn't put it in 2x speed. That's how I listen to a lot of things, just because it just helps with time. I don't have as much time as I'd like to listen to all the. I do. I know. And then when you put it back in normal speed, it sounds like they're all drunk. So yeah, if you want to watch the rest of this episode, the link is in the description. Download the Rumble app. Follow Stellman Smith Jr. We are going to be discussing 2 videos that come from Josh Howerton. The first one is on whether or not apostasy is a real thing. So this is going to turn into an in-house discussion among Christians. I argue it is. I'm going to cite the biblical passage that I think demonstrate it. And I labeled it as Christians cussing, context, and character, but Josh Howerton is going to make a brilliant point about something I've been talking about on the past couple weeks, that niceness is not a Christian virtue. Kindness is, niceness is not. And we got to reject the gospel of niceness to actually be kind. That means you have to be harsh sometimes. That means you have to be strong sometimes. And this does relate to the discussion around whether or not you can cuss as a Christian. Spoiler. You know what? I'm not going to give you the spoiler. Go to Rumble. So to everyone watching on YouTube, thank you so much. We will be here next Thursday, 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Until then, we've been the Unapologetic Apologists, and head over to Rumble. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.